So after months of speculating, after months of postponements and so on, we're finally getting around to doing the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. And I am so incredibly excited to bring this storyline to you guys because I would consider this to be one of the absolute greatest stories to have ever been told in the history of Marvel Comics. And most comic book readers in terms of Marvel, or even some people who read both DC and Marvel, would rate this as quite possibly one of the top 5 storylines that anybody needs to read who's interested in getting into Marvel. And there's a couple reasons for this. Right now, it looks as though almost everything that's taking place in Marvel Comics, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is moving towards this event, is moving towards this massive spacefaring venture involving Thanos and a multitude of superheroes. But the other side of this coin is that a lot of the people that we'll see in here, we may not see, just because of the fact that Marvel doesn't own the rights to these characters, namely the Silver Surfer, who is a major character in this story. But what we're also going to see with this Infinity Gauntlet event is that we're going to follow 2 stories. The first is going to be a story involving Silver Surfer, a story involving his arrival up to the point when he meets Doctor Strange. And the other one is going to involve the stories of Jake and Ralph and Bambi Long. And we'll get into them later on when we discuss what it is their characters have to do with this Infinity Gauntlet event. But what we see as the story begins to open up is that Doctor Strange is within his Arcanum, that he's simply just going about his normal day. And it seems here that he's reading some kind of medical journal, that he's simply going over whatever it is that he needs to read here. And this seems to be par for the course when it comes to Doctor Strange. And this is just designed to introduce us to a normal day, to a peaceful day where there's really nothing happening. But what we see is that there's some kind of smash, some kind of a crash or loud explosion in another room. And Doctor Strange immediately thinks that somebody's breaking into his home, that somebody's trying to steal his artifacts. But when he arrives in the next room, what he sees is that the Silver Surfer appears to be unconscious in his living room. The Silver Surfer is exhausted and, for the most part, muttering to himself, saying things like he needs to reach Doctor Strange, that he must reach Strange. And what we see is that Doctor Strange and Wong help Silver Surfer to the sofa, and Doctor Strange tells him that he has reached him, that he has reached Doctor Strange. And Silver Surfer says that he came to warn him, came to give him a warning of a grave threat, and that the arrival could herald the end of the universe, and that this person is Thanos, that Thanos is coming. From here, we switch to Silver Surfer giving us a backstory on what it was that happened here. And all Silver Surfer is really doing here is explaining to us the events that led up to the Thanos quest and the events that took place between the Thanos quest and the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. And what Silver Surfer tells us here is that, of course, Thanos had been tasked with eliminating half the life in the universe by Mistress Death, which was the reason why he had gone on the quest of gaining the Infinity Gems in the first place, so that he could achieve this task, he could perform this task without it taking several lifetimes. He could perform the task quite quickly and do it in such a way that it would satisfy the desire of Mistress Death. And what we see Silver Surfer telling us here is that this Infinity Gauntlet that Thanos is in possession of is something that could destroy all of reality. It could end the entire universe. And so something has to be done here. That because Thanos has been ordered to end half the life in the universe, that forces need to be gathered, that the superheroes need to do something, otherwise everything could come to an end. From here, we switch to the perspective of Thanos and Mephisto on some unknown planet. And we have previously talked about Mephisto. We've mentioned Mephisto, and again, we're not going to go too in-depth into his character here, but Mephisto is a cosmic entity for the most part, an abstract of kinds. He's not necessarily as powerful as Franklin Richards, for example, but he is a very powerful character in his own right. But given the fact that Thanos currently has the Infinity Gauntlet, Mephisto really has no power that even begins to compare to anything Thanos is capable of. And Mephisto, while he initially appears to be here as an ally, while he initially appears to be here as someone who can provide small baubles of wisdom for Thanos as he's learning how to use this kind of power wisely and effectively, what we'll see is that Mephisto actually has his own agenda here. He actually has his own plans and his own machinations, which will come to fruition later on. And what we see is that Thanos is really talking to himself more so than he's talking to Mephisto, but he says that when he initially went on the quest, when he initially started this journey, journey of gathering the Infinity Gems, that once the Infinity Gems were gathered, he felt as though he'd have a million questions, that he would spend more time pondering how to use this power than actually using it. And he says that now he only really has one question. He says the question is, how does he use such power? What does he do with such incredible power? And he answers his own question by saying that, quite simply, he can do anything he wants to because he is absolutely omnipotent. He says that for the most part, if anything happens that displeases him, if an event takes place that he doesn't like, he can simply undo it, that he's completely incapable of error, that anything he wants is his will. And because it's his will, anything can happen. He really presents himself here as a god within the universe. And what I would like you guys to take a very particular note of here is that Thanos is demonstrating incredible arrogance. Thanos has come across the Infinity Gauntlet and believes himself to be absolute, believes his power to be absolutely incredible, and that no one can oppose him within the universe. And this will become very important, especially when we get towards the end of the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. But what we see is Silver Surfer commenting on this. Silver Surfer is saying that Thanos was too arrogant to be anyone's servant, to be anyone's thrall. And so what we see is that Mephisto and Thanos transition back to the lair of Mistress Death. And we see that Thanos, as he approaches Mistress Death, begins to demonstrate to her, or begins to tell her that he cares for her, that he loves her, that in the end, all this was done for her love, for her affection, and that what he wants to see here is that she express that affection towards him, that she do something, she say something to indicate his presence. But all we see from Mistress Death at this point is that she spurns Thanos, is that she turns Thanos away, that she doesn't return the affection that Thanos demonstrates towards her. Now from here, we switch to the story of Jake Miller, Ralph, and Bambi Long. And what we see here is that these individuals appear to simply just be in the city. There's really no context given to them. They're at a bar and they're simply just kind of roaming around or maybe heading back home. And perhaps they were involved in some kind of bank robber, or they're criminals of some kind or something like that. But what we see is that as these individuals are traveling to their next location, whatever that next location happens to be, that they end up driving off a cliff. They end up driving to their deaths. It's explained to us by whoever this narrator is that they don't survive the fall. And from here, we switch back to the story of the Silver Surfer. And what the Silver Surfer is telling us here is that during the time in which Thanos had gained the Infinity Gems, and between the current moment when he is with Doctor Strange, that he and Drax the Destroyer had attempted to stop Thanos. They did the best they could to thwart Thanos, but Thanos had demonstrated his power to them, and they were completely helpless against him. There was absolutely nothing they could do to stop him, as he was warping all facets of reality, time, space, the mind, and so on. And so what we see is that Thanos strips their spiritual essence from their bodies and casts them into the soul gem, into the spiritual world. From here, we see that Silver Surfer says he encountered someone named Adam Warlock, and that Adam Warlock appeared to be the leader of the spiritual realm. Now, this is the first time that Silver Surfer has ever actually come across Adam Warlock, and this is the reason why, as we know who Adam Warlock is, the Silver Surfer doesn't. And so for him, he doesn't know what kind of power that Adam Warlock possesses. He doesn't know the role that Adam Warlock possesses or plays within the Marvel Universe. And so what Silver Surfer tells us here is that Adam Warlock casts a spell or uses his abilities to eject the souls of the Silver Surfer and Drax the Destroyer back into the physical world, where they have returned to their normal bodies. And what Silver Surfer tells us again is that he immediately went on a quest to travel to the planet Earth and to speak with Doctor Strange, and that the reason why this was so important was because, one, the power and the role that Thanos has been assigned by Mistress Death using the Infinity Gauntlet, and two, because of the fact that Silver Surfer doesn't know how much time has passed here. He doesn't know if he was trapped within the Soul Gem for days or weeks or minutes or seconds. And so his immediate goal here is to attract the attention of Doctor Strange. At this point, we switch back to the story of Jake Miller to Ralph and to Bambi Long. And what we see is that this narrator is telling us that the big guy, it seems to be the guy in charge, had waited until things cooled down before they all went in. And what we see is that three bright lights travel into the spiritual world, or into the physical world, and take over the bodies of Jake Miller, Bambi Long, and Ralph. And we see that Ralph is a little upset by this. Ralph reacts to this, saying that this body's totally destroyed. These bodies are dead, and that they can't simply just travel around looking like this, that they have to find some way to, at the very least, be discreet. And what we see is that the person who is in possession of Jake Miller's body says that his powers are for healing and modifying these bodies so that they can suit their needs. And so what we see is Jake Miller saying that because of the fact that he is the least injured, that he will go into the motel that they've come across and secure their lodging. From here, we see that Bambi Long's skin appears to be turning green, which of course seems to be something that she's happy with, something that she very much enjoys. At this point, we travel back to the story of Mephisto and Thanos within the realm of Mistress Death. And again, all we really see going on here is that Mistress Death is simply continuing to scorn Thanos, that she does not return the affections that Thanos has demonstrated towards her. And she's constantly quiet towards him. She refuses to speak to him. She refuses to look at him. That even if she does look at him, she looks at him with a glance, with a scornful glance, and simply just turns away. And what we see Thanos doing is trying to reason with her. Thanos is telling her that previously, before he gained the power of the Infinity Gauntlet, that he was simply a servant towards her, but now he is her equal, that she deserves better than a servant. She deserves some kind of a mate. And so Thanos views himself as somebody that could stand in the role of being an equal. But then we see his mind and we see his arrogance begin to demonstrate itself. And he says that he shouldn't just be an equal to Mistress Death, that he should be superior to Mistress Death. But what we see is that one of the servants of Mistress Death says that Thanos is in possession of power that is so much higher than what she has, that she is no longer anything in terms of a mate, that if she returned a romantic interest in him, she would be more of a love slave than anything else, because he could force her to do anything. And so what we see is that Thanos replies to this by saying that she is the keeper of his heart, that he loves her with everything that he has. But this individual says, this servant says, because of the power that he possesses, that his love is stifling, that his love is bondage. Thanos says no. He says that his love is worship, that there should be shrines built to Mistress Death, that there should be shrines built to her greatness. And so what we see is that Thanos, in the vastness of space, or in the depth of space, physically creates a shrine and transports all of them to it, which is simply just Thanos using the reality gem for his own end. And this is, for the most part, where we will see Thanos remain for the remainder of the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. We won't really see Thanos transition anywhere or go anywhere else except for this place. And this is very important, because what we'll see is a massive event taking place where we will see a multitude of superheroes and cosmic entities descend on this place in an effort to stop Thanos. And what we see here is that Thanos tells Mistress Death he has created this place for her. Now, this place is designed for his adoration of her. It is a shrine to be built to the beauty of what he perceives to be the idea of death. We see that he creates two chairs to sit side by side with one another, and that he and Mistress Death will sit together for all eternity, and they will shape the future of the universe. They will make the universe as they see fit. They will decide who lives and who dies. They will decide what's created and what's destroyed. But what we see is that Mistress Death continues to spurn Thanos, that she continues to reject any advancements that he makes, that she continues to reject any affection that he demonstrates for her. From here, we see that Thanos uses his abilities with the Infinity Gauntlet to do what he considers to be yet another instance of impressing Mistress Death. And what he does here is he brings back Nebula. Now, Nebula had previously presented herself to Thanos as his granddaughter, as the granddaughter of Thanos, and Thanos had taken her on as his charge. But eventually, the time came when Thanos realized that she was lying, that she was not his granddaughter, that she was simply just a space pirate. And so, what we see Thanos doing is warping her body, transforming her body, and turning her into a corpse, more or less. She's neither truly alive nor truly dead. She's just a corpse, and she can never really experience anything other than absolute pain and the inability to stop that pain, as well as the inability to simply die. And Thanos does this as a creation for Mistress Death. He does this to, I guess, as a comment of sorts on the perversion of life and the beauty of death. But what we see is that Mistress Death appears to be appalled by this. She appears to be absolutely disgusted by this. And so she again turns her back on Thanos. From here, we see Thanos getting angry with Mistress Death. Thanos screams at her, he yells at her not to turn her back on him, that she needs to face him. And what we see is this servant begins to speak again with Thanos and says that that these empty boasts that he's making, that these disdainful actions that he's committing are not impressing Mistress Death, that they are not pleasing Mistress Death. And so we see Thanos destroys this servant. From here, Thanos completely shows I guess, not necessarily a 180 in terms of his affection of Mistress Death, but his anger with Mistress Death, and saying that she will either speak to him directly or not at all. And what we see is that Thanos continues to be angry, but we also see Mephisto playing on this role of Thanos. We see Mephisto playing on this anger that Thanos has for Mistress Death, and what he says is that perhaps it's something that Thanos hasn't done, the role that Thanos hasn't fulfilled. And this is when Thanos realizes that he has not done what Mistress Death asked him to do, that Thanos has not eliminated half the life in the universe. And so what we see going on here is one of the single most memorable moments in the history of comic books, when we see Thanos apologize to Mistress Death. We see Thanos saying that he's sorry, that he realizes she's angry with him because his behavior has been inexcusable, that rather than performing the task that she had assigned him, that he had refused to do it or simply ignored it, and then didn't understand why it was that she was angry in the first place. And so what we see is that Mephisto's shocked to see that this will actually happen, and Thanos walks to the edge of the shrine and snaps his fingers. And when Thanos snaps his fingers, it results in half the life in the universe being totally eradicated. From here, we switch to Spider-Man. And Spider-Man is traveling through New York City. He's simply swinging from one building to another, and it's his normal night in terms of looking around to see if there's any kind of crime going on. And for the most part, he says that that he's calling it a night, that he's bringing this to an end, and that he's heading home. But then a sudden wave of vertigo hits him, and it seems as though his spider sense is going totally awry. From there, there's a reaction to everybody. People are freaking out because people are simply just vanishing, that people are simply just disappearing off the face of the planet, but nobody knows why. And what we see here is that Spider-Man begins to freak out. Spider-Man understands what it is that's taking place, that people are simply vanishing, that people are simply disappearing, that no one knows where they're disappearing to. And his fear here is that Mary Jane may be one of these individuals who have vanished. And so what we see is Spider-Man flying off, or swinging off, to get back to his apartment so that he can find out whether or not Mary Jane is safe. From here, we transition to Captain America, and Captain America is within the Avengers headquarters, and of course he's going about his normal routine again of just verifying that the premises is safe, making sure that everything's okay. And for the most part, it doesn't really seem as though anything too major is happening. We see that Hawkeye, along with Siri, are handing Captain America some documents talking about various things that are taking place in the world at the moment. But then we see that mid-conversation that Cersei and Hawkeye vanish. They just totally disappear. And Captain America could absolutely do nothing to stop this. He was terrified. He was horrified because for him, he knew that whatever force was at work here, that whatever had happened that had done this, that had forced these superheroes to disappear, was far beyond anything that he was capable of stopping. And so he knew that this was going to turn into something big. This was going to turn into something massive, something that could possibly be a threat to the universe as a whole. From here, we switch to Nick Fury. And Nick Fury is within the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, and what we see Nick Fury doing is simply going over documentation, going over the information that's been given to him about how half the Earth's population has simply just vanished, that there's nothing as far as their investigations and S.H.I.E.L.D. goes that indicates what could possibly happen here. There are no mutants that have any sort of power that could do this as far as they understand, or even if they do have that kind of power, that they haven't exercised it. There's really nothing going on here in terms of any energy projections that they've demonstrated coming from the planet Earth that would explain why it is that half of the life on the planet has simply just vanished. From here, we see this comic beginning to come to a close, and what we see is that we touch back with Ralph, Bambi Long, and Jake Miller. And what we see is that Ralph and Bambi Long are simply just within the hotel room, that Ralph is commenting that he likes being back in the physical world, that he likes returning here. And Bambi is simply just getting used to her having her physical body. But what we see is that Bambi disappears as Ralph is looking at her, that she simply just vanishes. And Ralph begins to panic. Ralph doesn't know what to do here. And so what we see is that Ralph runs to the next room, and he tries to tell Jake Miller that Bambi has simply vanished, that he doesn't know where she went to. But what we see is that in place of Jake Miller is a cocoon, indicating to us that Adam Warlock is returning to the physical universe. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know, and I will catch you guys later.